Today's July 21st, and this is the 14th day. I'm in my 14th day of my fast. And so I just woke up, and it seems to be my practice now that I'm making these little talks to you, my grandchildren, as soon as I wake up, because that's when I have something on my mind. I either remember my dream or I have something on my mind when I wake up, and that's has been now since I've been fasting the basis for my for my talks. And last night when I was going to sleep, I was watching A President Betrayed. It was about John F. Kennedy. And they were talking about all the different people that, were in the State Department and everything, and different people in the military and stuff that advised President Kennedy. And one thing he did is he had in his the people, presidents have people that advise them. They have advisors, and they select their advisors. And he had historians, as he had at least one historian that I'm very familiar with. His name, Albert Schweitzer, and he was a good advisor. And then in the thing I was watching, there's another guy with the last name of it started with an A. I don't remember what it was. Adler sticks in my mind, but I know Adler's not Adler because Adler is a child psychiatrist. He's one of the like Adler and Erickson and that I had to study early on. No, it wasn't Adler, but it started with an A. And anyway, he was a hardliner and more like a warmonger, and he was kind of like a, people that are dedicate their lives to the military. They like to fight, and they like they're ready to do like invasions. And the guy with the last name starting with A, he wanted Kennedy to invade. I don't remember where it was because in his presidency, he had the thing with Berlin. They built the wall in Berlin, East and West Berlin, and because people were like leaving Russia or something, or leaving the communist part of Berlin. They divided Berlin, which is it right there, like in Germany. I don't know if it's part of the country of Germany or not, but it's in Germany, from what I remember. And anyway, Russia, the president of Russia then was Khrushchev, I think his name was. I can't remember everything really good, but they were talking about this stuff last night, and because that's what was going on then. So I'm trying to think of who this guy last name A wanted Kennedy to invade. And it was Gorbachev was Russia, and Castro was from I don't remember. Anyway, it is. He's a lot of stuff going on in war. A lot of war. I mean, okay, like it started with the Bay of Pigs, and Kennedy he kind of suffered some stuff, you know, the president always inherits from the previous administration, and then you got people from the previous administration that are still have the agenda of the previous administration, and then Kennedy didn't have the agenda of the previous administration, President Eisenhower, you know, and President Kennedy was a man of principle, and he you know, he served in the military, and he was in the Navy. Because I remember he got stranded out at sea one time. I used to have a book about him. I read a book about him one time. And but anyway, so you know, I'm thinking about all this stuff and going to sleep, and naturally I had some dreams about war stuff, but I couldn't actually remember them when I woke up. Because I woke up and then I went back to sleep, and then I don't know if I didn't return to the place I was dreaming or not, but anyway, they never mentioned Kissinger, and well, let me just wrap up with Kennedy first. You know, he got assassinated. I think it was 1964. He got assassinated, and it might have been earlier in '64. I was born in '62. I don't remember when the Vietnam War started, but the Vietnam War, Kennedy wanted to evacuate everybody out of Vietnam. He didn't want to go to Vietnam. He didn't want to have troops in Vietnam when all this communist stuff started. It started being a problem and everything, and they call it the communist bloc. And Russia was part of that. Right, the president of I think they call it president of Russia. You know, he seemed to be like bipolar a little bit. You know, because he could be like really friendly, and he could be like really angry and boisterous and stuff. You know. But he told Kennedy, when Kennedy went over to see him one time, he said Berlin was like a scrotum in the Soviet Union's hand. He could squeeze it. He could squeeze them at will, you know. And he told Kennedy, he said, "Look, he said if we're gonna fight, now's a good time." And you know, Kennedy turned to one of his advisors and said, "Is he always like this?" You know, because Kennedy was for negotiation. You know, Kennedy said, you know, we don't negotiate out of fear, but on the other hand, we don't fear to negotiate. See, negotiation is the best way. And he was about reducing the nuclear arms race, so that he also said, like, we need to abolish nuclear arms before nuclear arms abolish us. There's a lot of thought that maybe Kennedy was assassinated because his own people that were, and he was afraid of the military. He was afraid the military would do something that he didn't want them to do, because in his government, some people in the State Department didn't do what he said. Okay? That's why this thing was called a president betrayed, because he was betrayed. He was a Democrat. He's a good president. He was a very good president. I don't think anybody can argue that he was not. Like, potential spam. comes up. He he was a good president, and he was born. I mean, he became president around the same time I was born. He was president. I think he was president when I was born. I was born in '62, and I think he was still president, but he got assassinated. Seemed to me I was in first grade or something, or I don't know. Maybe that couldn't have been. I remember when I was little, we had to give time, silence, moment of silence of something's happened. Maybe it was his assassination. Well, look, I haven't reviewed my history and everything in a long time, except for I did watch this last night. And I reminded about a lot of stuff. And so that's where I'm starting. But, you know, I remember Henry Kissinger. They didn't talk about Henry Kissinger in this thing. See, I know Ronald Reagan was president when Colonel Medina and his family moved into the house on the corner where we used to go picking night crawlers. And then I became friends with Cecil, because that was now his property. And I remember at that time, President Reagan was president because I remember he got shot in the arm. And I got my paper route. I started working when I was 12 because that's when you could start working. You had to be 12. And so in Wisconsin, I got a paper route. And everywhere that every house I went to, I had to introduce myself because I had to collect. I had to on every. I don't remember what day collection was. I think it was on Saturday or Sunday. I'm pretty sure we delivered the papers 7 days a week. You know, and I think Sunday was Saturday and Sunday. I think it was collection day or something. I don't know. Can't remember exactly either. They're vague memories. But yeah, so nobody could understand my name. It's a very easy name, Thad. But I couldn't pronounce it, I guess, with enough clarity. And I would have to repeat myself, you know. I'd say, hello, I'm your new paper boy. My name is. I'm missing a tooth right now. Get knocked out, so I can't pronounce exactly like I used to be able to, but I like my name, Thad. Little air goes through there. So, you know, my name is Thad, and I say, Chad? I say, no, Thad. Fad? No, not fad, Thad. Like, see, when I go, air goes through there. Okay. And Chad, Thad, Wad, Chat, Thad, Sad? No, not sad. Bad? No, not bad. Thad. T-H-A-D. Thad. And, you know, some people can't hear very good. Anyway, yeah, if I would have said Thaddeus, but I never liked the name Thaddeus. Anyway, Thaddeus was my name. My mom named me Thad. Simple 4-letter word. It's like the word love, a 4-letter word. It's like the word life, a 4-letter word. And there's also another word that starts with F. It's just used a lot. A 4-letter word. Basic 4-letter word. Nothing more, nothing less. Anyway, well, I was thinking about, you know, Kissinger. Some people like him, some people don't like him. But at the moment, I can't really remember a heck of a lot about Kissinger. I'm pretty sure Kissinger was one of the diplomats that would, they have people that go to other countries and represent the president and represent America. I'm pretty sure that's what he was. That he became famous. I don't think he was vice president or anything like that. But like on the ground right here, I got this book, Thomas Merton, Raids on the Unspeakable. I found this one up in that closet that I got my mom's albums out of, and there's a lot of things in here. I need to read them. Like the message to poets, answer on art and freedom, and Martin's predicament, or Atlas watches every evening, letter to an innocent bystander. Well, look, this book is basically a thing about like atrocity, to tell you the truth. But I didn't remember, because unspeakable, atrocity is unspeakable. That's one thing that's unspeakable, atrocity. But I'm just unspeakable. I'm thinking about war, the unspeakable atrocity of war. And we got a president that, he wants to make a splash. He always wants to. It's this guy, man. He's I don't know what to think about him. I don't really think about him too much. I just gotta read and I opened this up right straight away just now. And my Noise, Quiet, Fear, Love. I already read that one. And my this stuff that Quasparo ones that I did when that's my table of contents, and for a thing application that I made. This girl helped me make it. She was actually a graphics designer. Like she used Corel Draw to help me format these things. All these are all my chapters, and that's my table of contents, and a reasonably full account of my life. That picture down there of like the pyramid, that came from well, actually falling apart a little bit. That came from Corel Draw. And I still don't know how they made the pyramids, with their what we would consider their limited technological expertise at that time. But like so many things that are unexplainable, unspeakable stuff, you have no answer for it to speak of. That so a lot of people, believe that this kind of technology and ways and methods that they used early on that are incredible, and even to the point of being unspeakable, that they come from people's dreams. That's when it's imparted in a person's dreams. I think Tesla, I think he held a ball. One of those guys held a ball in their hand, and then when they fall asleep, they start falling asleep, and start dreaming in the state where they could actually still remember what they were dreaming about. It dropped the ball out of their hand, and then when the ball hit the floor, they'd wake up, and then they'd write down what they were thinking about. And one of the inventors used to do that. I don't know if it was Tesla or it was somebody else. But, you know, I was thinking of Kennedy. Kennedy and I, when I woke up, I was thinking about my poem that I wrote, which I can't remember what I said in here. And I didn't reread it in preface to right now. But I was thinking, it's a Spanish term, no te conformis. And I'm gonna read that one just because it's something I can do, you know, for my journal. Because when I'm dead, and maybe when you read this, you know, or see this, if you do, you know, there won't be nothing left of me. There won't be nothing left, you know. So this might be the only thing that's saved in my little talks here. And I don't know. Sometimes I feel that somebody wants to erase me from the earth. I tell you, man, I've been through some shit I've been through. You'd feel the same way. Different plots against me and stuff. I used to have this surveillance detector, and I went underneath my mobile home, because like in this mobile home, you know all the wire and water leaks and different things. You got to go underneath, you know. And well, there's actually hidden, because some of my vapor barrier, you know, was cut, and I found that there are actually electrical sockets hidden underneath there that you can plug something into. And I always used to, I got a surveillance detector, and I used to turn everything off, and then there'd still be a 5 bars of a signal of some kind of Wi-Fi or something, you know, that the surveillance detector picked up, and it was strong because it was all the way up to 5 bars on my surveillance detector. I never could figure out where it was coming from. And I've had people on my property that plant bugs, knew how to make bugs, they're criminals, and you know, different when, you know, I've taken aggressive action against that kind of stuff. And you know, Amanda Boyd, I was talking about her, you know, she helped me one time pack up these people, all their stuff, and get it off my property, so I can get them off my property. And that called me. That reminds me of another thing Kennedy said. You know, Kennedy, his perspective was he always, when he thought about his own actions, his plans of action and his action plans and his responses and stuff, he would project into the equation the foresight. He would say to himself, okay, if I do this, what will the other country do? Okay, like, you know, it's not just, you know, doing something because, okay, you retaliate, you don't care about, you don't think about what's going to happen based on what you do. No, he always made a discipline and a practice that he would think about what he does, and then what will somebody else do based on what he does. And people in countries will do different things. That's what you got to think about. You know, if you do one thing, what are they going to do? Like when I took these people's property off my property and took it to the person's where they used to live, to mom's house, and just bagged it up and dropped it off. That's what me and Amanda Boyd did. You know, they did that. She helped me, and then that's when I was like early in the morning. You know, my son Bryson was sleeping, and that's when so what they did, what he did, you know, when he came back like, I don't know, like, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning or something, you know, and that was like, I think, taking the last load over there. You know, of course, they got angry, and he told me I had it all wrong. And look, man, I had no other choice. Like, Bryson's mother, it's a story, you know. You can get it from her if you want to. They went over to get some marijuana and people, and before it was over, there was gunfire, and they came back all my son and her, Bryson's mother, all bent out of sorts and stuff. And I heard both sides. I heard from him, and I heard it from, my Adam and Caleb. But I had to get them off my property. Yeah. And my van wasn't working very good, and I had to park it. And I couldn't have it like stranded. So, I had my car, and so she got my car, and I left my van at Bill Marshall's house, and he wasn't living there. I was renting the property out. That's, of course, I said that's how I met her and everything. And so somebody took the license plate off my van, flattened my tires, and I called the police. And then when the police came I had to report it. When the police came, I had Bryson with me. It was in the daytime. I mean, they took my son and grandson away from me based on what the other people said, that I had left him alone for 20 minutes, when I was getting these people off my property. And that was their reaction to me getting them off the property. So you always have to think about, if you do something, okay, like what I did was like an invasion. All right, I took aggressive action. I took matters in my own hand. I did what I felt I needed to do, with bravery, with courage, with balls. All right? Like, I ain't gonna be I'm not gonna subject. I'm taking control of the situation here. Okay? Well, what didn't happen is I got Bryson taken away from me. Okay? The unexpected. So you gotta think real hard about what you do, about the ramifications. That's what I'll call this one. I'll call this one ramifications, because that's really the point of what I think I'm saying today. It grips my heart. It grips my heart deeply, deeply and hard. Just like having your hand around the scrotum of a man, and you can squeeze the balls. Okay? That's what Khrushchev, I think his name was, from Russia anyway, from the Soviet Union then. That's what he said to Kennedy. He said, Berlin is like balls in my hand, and I can squeeze them at will. Okay. When we used to wrestle, there was this gym teacher, and he must have been gay or something, because when he'd wrestle, he would, and we were kids, he'd take his finger and his thumb like this, and he'd grab, we wore shorts, and in wrestling, you always wear shorts. He'd pinch the head of your dick and squeeze it. He'd grab your, like that, and squeeze it. What the fuck? I don't know what he'd do shit like that for me, That kind of stuff, man, when that happens when you're a kid, it really pisses you off, man. And that's what make me like, BAM! Look, man, there's boundaries. And so when you get ready to fight, BAM! See? Back at you, bitch. Hey? But when you go to fight, it's really not always the answer. Not the best. That's not best practice. I mean, I grew up fighting, but it's better to use your brain and think. And that's what Kennedy did. He's a man of principle. Kennedy was, and and he suffered a lot of pain. He had a bad back. It made him suffer a lot of pain. But they killed him. And then the Bob Dylan song, Masters of War. I think that might have come because the advisors, then we went into Vietnam, and we didn't do what Kennedy wanted. You know, we went in Vietnam and 60,000 people, 60,000 men and boys got slaughtered in Vietnam. You watch shows about Vietnam, you'll understand. War has a deep effect on us. You look at the Jews, Nazi camps and everything, you know, and now it's Israel trying to be the imperialistic society in that area, you know. But war is no good. But you know, at least we're out of the nuclear arms race. I don't know. One of the greatest things Kennedy did is he made a treaty, and he got people to agree and sign it with him to not blow up nuclear bombs for testing purposes in outer space or down in the ocean, you know, or like that, you know. And so you know, because look, you know, you got to, if you're president of the United States, you got to be concerned, you know, that we don't fall into nuclear war, you know, and then blow ourselves to smithereens. And the fallout from that, you know, would just be horrendous. The dead would be envied. It would annihilate so much, and the dead would be envied. Maybe I should call this one Envy the Dead? Question mark. Because that's could be where we're heading. You know, when I was crawling underneath the house, you know, when I came out from underneath there, I didn't know, I didn't take any drugs or anything, but I was like thinking, man, about all the different things that I've experienced where people have tried to kill me, and I was laying down, and I can't remember. I was looking at the moon or something, and it seemed to me that I could see activity up on the moon. It was a full moon, and for some reason I started thinking that we were at war with China, and then I started thinking about Bob Dylan's song, God on Our Side, and he says in one of the ending lines or something, you know, if God is, I think it's the ending line, if God's on our side, he'll stop the next war. If God's on our side, he'll stop the next war. And I was thinking, and I just remember the mantra came to me, and I started crying as I was thinking about it. And my mantra was like this. It just came very naturally. It was my first realization, thinking we were at war with China, and the war was taking place up there in outer space. And God Almighty, Jesus Christ, holy shit. Okay. So there's those four words. God Almighty. And then I started saying it in repetition. I started crying. God Almighty. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Okay. God Almighty. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Okay. God Almighty. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Okay. Uh, I even, and and then there was air thunder, or whatever you call it, and you know, I was like seeing shadow people. I walked over right next to her neighbor's house. I didn't even know what time it was. I said to her, I knocked on the door. I seen somebody through the window. I knew they were up, and I knocked on the door, and they answered, and I said, I believe we're at war. and she said, no. She said, that's just the lightning thunder, or whatever you call it. It sounded like bombs blowing up and everything, you know, in the sky, but it's nothing. It's just like, I forget what you call it. But anyway, I'm gonna stop it right there. You know, I don't know. Ramifications of what we do, you know. Kennedy, he was a principled man. I hope you study history and become and be like him. Have it within yourself advisors of the big forest picture, you know, history, and understand things in history. Because part of the problem with America is we change presidents every 4 years, and then everything changes, a whole new agenda, and other countries can't trust us because after 4 years you're gonna have a different president, and you're not gonna abide by anything that you said. See? That's why Confucius, I think, The Art of War. That's why you should read that book, because that's really where we're at. People have to study The Art of War. That's from, I think it's from Confucius. And treachery, deception, that's all part of war. And people acting like they're your friends when they're really your enemy. That's what I experienced on my own property. And people try to kill you. You're in your life. You're like in Rambo, or I think it was Rambo. You know, you're expendable, and in the military, you're expendable. So many things I've been talking about here: expendability, ramifications, being principled. The art of war. My mantra. My paper route, my experience, and you know, being born in the 60s, and that's my frame of reference, you know, stems from that point right there, from the 60s. All right, bye.